Human trafficking is a relatively new term used to describe a decades-old crime. In Canada's 2005 human trafficking legislation, a trafficker was described as someone who, quote, recruits, transports, transfers, receives, holds, conceals, or harbors a person, or who exercises control or influence over the movements of a person for the purposes of exploiting them or facilitating their exploitation. Exploitation was defined as making someone provide a service out of fear for their safety or the safety of someone they know. Simply put, human trafficking is slavery. Every day it is a topic that garners attention around the world, but not so much in Canada, let alone Ontario. In the United States, many states have set up task forces designed to go after the traffickers and then provide the necessary services to support the victims. These task forces bring together government, police, NGOs, and frontline service providers. In less than 2 years, The Sun has published more than 50 articles detailing the human trafficking situation in Canada and Ontario. Interviews have been published with victims, frontline workers, and police. But the Ontario government has rarely been a voice at the table, and it has become very clear that the organization that exists in states south of the border does not exist in Canada's most populated province. The result, as one expert put it, victims are being left to fend for themselves. Moreover, those on the ground are either going hat in hand to find the necessary services on their own or being forced to turn victims away because they lack the necessary infrastructure to help the victims. In 2008, The Sun ran a national series that exposed Canada's inaction on the issue of human trafficking. One of the ideas that came up was a province-wide task force similar to those seen in the United States. In response to a request for an interview with Attorney General Chris Bentley about the issue, a government spokesman emailed a statement saying the government supported the hard work of police and pointed to the successful prosecution of human trafficking cases. There is no comment on the idea of a province-led initiative that would bring together different agencies to tackle the problem. Fast forward 1 year to another series, this time focusing on the lack of services for victims of human trafficking in Ontario. Criticism has been thrown at the Premier's office for not taking a lead on the issue. British Columbia and Alberta both have coalitions set up that bring together government, police, and NGOs to combat human trafficking. Ontario has nothing. Though The Sun was very clear about the criticism the government faced, several requests for comment from Premier Dalton McGuinty both before and after the series began running were denied. Instead, the buck was passed to the Ministry of the Attorney General, where again a spokesman emailed a statement, this time listing services provided under the Ontario Victim Services Secretariat. Services that are, by and large, reserved for victims involved in the criminal justice process. According to a government insider and several people who have tried to access services for victims, many times victims of human trafficking either aren't involved in the criminal justice process, don't meet the criteria necessary to receive these services, or the services aren't immediate enough or sufficient enough to meet the victim's complex needs. This is what those on the ground say is needed immediately to help the slaves among us. Number 1, a phone number victims can call for immediate, around-the-clock assistance. Such a number would have to be advertised in ethnic and mainstream media and be staffed with multilingual workers who are trained in the issues around trafficking. 2, safe houses or shelters specifically for trafficked victims, where victims can be clothed and can receive or be referred to the necessary services such as counseling and health care. 3, a phone number for police officers, NGOs, frontline health workers, and anyone else who encounters human trafficking victims to call for immediate victim assistance. 4, an official network of agencies that work together to provide these services. And 5, an integrated police task force geared towards proactively seeking victims and tracking perpetrators as they cross jurisdictional lines. For all this, experts agree there must be a government strategy on combating human trafficking. Right now, there is none. Asked why people should care about helping victims of human trafficking, most experts said because it could be your mother, your sister, your daughter, or your friend who is being enslaved. Others pointed out that in 2002, Canada ratified the United Nations Protocol on Trafficking in Persons, which specifically tasks member states with providing the necessary services for human trafficking victims. And other experts said simply, whatever happened to just being human? For Sun Media, I'm Tamara Cherry.